Good morning, everybody. My name is Vikram Mankar, the Principal Digital Product Manager for Plant Applications, part of the Digital Plant Group here at GE Digital. I'm sure I know some of you. I haven't gone through the list of people attended, but we've probably met in the past at one of the prior AutomaTech conferences or personally visited you as a customer. And then again, thank you for being our customers. We are always proud to work with our customers. Some brief background on me. I've been with GE about 14 years now. I took a 2-year gap, not 14 continuous years, but I took a 2-year gap the last couple of years where I went work for a couple of startups, getting to know where the industry is going in terms of manufacturing and solving manufacturing problems. And I returned back to GE last December, where it was a good opportunity to come back and sort of bring those learnings and apply here as part of the revamped GE Digital, so to speak. My background is all manufacturing. Spent 20 years in manufacturing, started in automotive, deploying MES systems in big auto, and then with GE being part of the core MES team from the very beginning, especially on the plant applications platform. So again, glad to be back with GE Digital. There's a lot of exciting times here, both from a digital perspective, as well as the challenges and the opportunities that these challenges present for the digital plant portfolio is going to be exciting. And I hope you see that as well as you are seeing these presentations over the last couple of weeks here with the GE team and the other partners that you're seeing today. So speaking of, I saw a graphic yesterday that the word unprecedented has been unprecedented in terms of its trending, because that's really what the world is today. It's been a very different world. And because of that, the challenges that it's brought in are not, I wouldn't say new, but a little different in terms of your traditional challenges that you have when you have things operating normally. And normally, I mean, you have your normal challenges. But with COVID-19, what we're seeing is from a manufacturing standpoint, and this is across industries, this is not limited to one industry, but innovation in general is under pressure. And by under pressure, what we're seeing is you're looking at news about automotive companies retooling and trying to make ventilators. You have companies that are 3D printing face shields when they were 3D printing metal parts before. You have food companies innovating in the sense where you have bottling companies who are bottling maybe traditionally wine and alcohol are now bottling hand sanitizers. You have and this is a chain of events that's going on in multiple industries where truly the innovation is under pressure, where you are forced to innovate literally as things evolve. And so you have to innovate and deliver quickly. So that's to me, that's again a great opportunity on how you can use some of the manufacturing systems and tools in place today to kind of support that innovation under pressure. How that production agility, how do you support production agility is going to be key. You've seen disruptions in supply chains, multiple levels. You have areas where you have either food shortages or the supply chain is not able to manage those ripple effects. You have dairy companies either pumping milk out into their plants because they're not able to ship on time, or it's just stocking up. Or you have meat supply chain disruptions where there's just not enough workers to move that meat around to your end channels. Labor disruptions, huge problem today in the industry with the restrictions that COVID-19 is putting in. Demand slumps, critical product shortages, and you're seeing that in your supermarkets. When you go, you see shelves that are practically empty, and then you go to other sections. I found that funny where the fresh produce, where you have all the healthy stuff, it's fully stocked, and then you go to the aisles where you have pasta and pasta sauces, and that's all empty. So it's funny to see, how you have demand slumps in one area, whereas critical shortages in the other sections of your supplies and of your key products. And then, traditional distribution channels have been disrupted. That is a reality, a fact. Direct to consumers up. I'm ordering grocery online with my phone today, no longer going to the grocery store. So that's sort of that model that's evolving and changing very rapidly today. You have, it's not just grocery stores, right? A lot of things are evolving where you are, like today, doing webinars. It's the same thing with manufacturers. They're doing a lot of webinars and web-based selling directly to consumers versus a traditional distribution channel. And the regulations, I think we will see regulations evolve. certainly with COVID-19, how people interact in a plant environment, certainly that's going to change. Then there might be some regulations around that. So we don't know yet, but we certainly are keeping an eye on how these regulations kind of evolve when it comes to food safety, when it comes to your personnel safety and so forth. So that's going to be a lot of interesting times as we see these challenges kind of unfold. And these are just COVID-19, and you also have your traditional challenges of trying to maintain your operational efficiency. You have product demand that's shot up the roof, and now you got to maintain that operational efficiency and deliver those products on time. You got to still keep your costs under control. You got to reduce your waste, and can't compromise on safety. Can't compromise safety at any level, whether it's a product or your personnel. So quality is paramount. And then from an infrastructure standpoint, the same questions and challenges exist. TCO, how do I improve my return on investment on these employments? How do I deploy these systems faster? If I want to innovate under pressure, if I want to react in real time, how do I get these systems out there faster? So again, a new world of different challenges with the old one, but I think this is also a opportunity for companies like GE Digital for our products to come out there and shine and help you. So with that, let me we're talking about production agility, we're talking about operational performance given where you are and the changing environment. Let's bring up a poll question, Matt, if you will. Considering where your operational performance is, where would you consider, you as a manufacturer, where do you consider yourself to be at? Are you a best practice? Are you at industry benchmarks? Are you below an industry benchmark? Or a don't know is also a good answer. So I'll give you a few seconds here to respond to that. Hold here.
Hey Vikram, how would you classify some of those? Is there anything you can do to elaborate a little bit more on that in terms of?
Yeah, so one, let's classify. Let's use a metric here as an example. So operational performance, one common metric being used pretty around industries is OEE, right? So best practice would be you as from an OEE perspective or process reliability perspective are the best amongst your peers. You are what people consider the go-to company for in terms of the best practices that you said, or you're at the industry benchmark. So typically industry benchmarks like OEE is around, again, depending on the industry, anywhere from 75 to 85%. So you're at that industry sort of benchmark. Or you're below that, you are struggling, but you see the opportunity to improve, right? Or you just don't know. So just think about in terms of, again, a performance benchmark. OEE is one. What is the one that you use, and where do you see yourself compared to your peers?
Yeah, thanks for clarifying. I think that's good background information there. I think we've got the majority. Looks like people are being a little shy on voting today, not getting all the numbers, but we at least have the majority of the group. So I'm going to wrap it up right now and share these results. Looks like the leader here is that most feel that not 50%, but most feel that they are the industry benchmark. I don't know if you want to talk to those results. Is that what you expected? Do you expect to see something different? What do you think there, Vikram?
I think from an operational performance standpoint, that's pretty much what we see in the industry as well. I mean, if you do a quick survey, you will see about 30–40% of the companies kind of in that benchmark areas. And what they're doing is it's not so much about operational performance anymore. It's more about innovation. How do we innovate, and how do we get that incremental? So when you get to that 75–80% OEE as an example, you're no longer looking at a jump to 85. In fact, you don't want to go higher. Sometimes 90% OEE is not necessarily a good thing. It could actually mean also a bad thing. You may be actually making more product where there's really no demand for that product. So that's where customers are looking for incremental increases or increases that actually bring them new value. So it helps them innovation. So that kind of is the industry trend. But I'm also looking at the numbers where you have that opportunity. So 90% of our audience here look at that opportunity of growing. And then the ones who don't know, this is a good opportunity to find out, well, where are you truly today, right? So we'll talk about ways to do that.
Great, thanks.
Okay. So speaking of technology trends, so you have all these challenges, but you're also overwhelmed in terms of technology trends, specifically related to manufacturing. And so you have all these buzzwords. I call them buzz terms. And don't get me wrong, these are all valid, good technologies. But what I'm trying to emphasize is they do not replace what you have today. In fact, if anything, these either augment, fill gaps, or provide that incremental innovation plug that you need to get your operational performance that notch higher, if you will. So let's go through one at a time, and I'll talk about how G Digital, and from my perspective, me, the product manager for an MES system, how does MES kind of fit in when you have all these competing technologies trying to get, grab your attention and space in your plans. IoT, I think we hear a lot about these platforms and the things they can do. I think from my perspective, if you think purely in terms of platforms actually don't run plants. It's the applications that you build on them that run that plant. Those plants. And so MES can plug, so MES can be actually a good plug-in into these IoT platforms. So think of IoT platforms as what I call rapid application development environments, ways you can create persona-based environments or persona-based applications where, as an operator, I don't care if there's an MES, an ERP, a CMMS, or 100 other systems underneath. I care about the work that I need to do. So how do I hide that, the complex array of systems? And so IoT platforms can help kind of do that by bringing in machine data, by bringing in other data sources, and helping you kind of create that environment where, as an operator, I don't need to care. At the same time, IoT from a OEM or from other business perspectives is a good opportunity to interact with, again, with these systems and with sensors directly on the machine to bring in data and provide new applications and new value to existing customers. So again, MES has a strong play when it comes to IoT. IoT certainly are no replacements for MES. It'll take you ages to go build that same capability in an IoT platform. And so to me, it's a marriage, right? So IoT platforms and MES is a good marriage. Digital transformation, if you haven't had 5 white papers coming into your mailbox every day on digital transformation, then that's not a buzzword for you, but that's what's happening today. Every consultant, every company is talking about digital transformation, and it's all valid, it's all true, especially in these times. And MES is a strong enabler there. So that's what I feel is foundationally, MES can provide a good backbone when we talk about digital transformation. We'll get a little bit specifics about those. And then augmented reality, mixed reality, MES is really the core, the content provider, the context provider to augment reality. So again, these systems don't replace your traditional manufacturing systems. If anything, they wrap around these to provide that context and content for that reality, or that the augmentation of reality for the operator or for the environment that you're working. And we have a good example. I'll show you an example what we did with an automotive company. Lean and Six Sigma, again, foundational from a continuous improvement standpoint. MES is there helping Lean and Six Sigma initiatives. That's your go-to for your data and your context. That's also your go-to to provide, to create new processes, to bring new logic into your environment and empower your people. In fact, Lean Six Sigma and digital transformation go hand in hand. So if you think about it, these are digital transformation actually picks up on Lean Six Sigma. And transformation is not about just becoming digital. It's about transforming how your culture, your value chain, and everything improves as you have data flowing across your organization and across your suppliers. And Six Sigma is all about eliminating waste. And that's really what you're doing with transformation, is you're eliminating waste from an organizational perspective, from a value chain perspective, by going digital. AI, I actually came from an AI startup, so I have a lot of opinions about AI and predictive analytics. And one thing I've learned is data alone does not tell the whole story. You need, in some cases, when you talk about digital twins, you need to understand the physics of how a machine operated. You also need to understand, in terms of manufacturing, what's the context behind the data that you're collecting. And context is king, and that's where I think MES provides a good bias. So when you talk about machine learning and supervised machine learning, the good bias is really the context. How do you bring context, apply the data, and apply to the data? And then obviously infrastructure, we have cloud, fog, edge technologies. So again, MES systems like Proficy, we can run in most environments. So we have cloud, with 8.1, you can now host 8.1 in an Amazon cloud connected to an RDS. So you don't need to have a dedicated SQL server. You can run you can run your environment in Amazon connected to Amazon RDS, and now you leverage the cloud features. But we also support the traditional edge or in your data center architectures as well. And then digital thread, digital twin, I think MES is foundational again here. In fact, I would say MES is sort of a low fidelity factory digital twin. So this is where I think to get to that high fidelity digital twin, you need IoT. So IoT can quickly connect your sensors. You need some of the other tools to bring in so that that data parity with that digital twin requires that MES is not able to bring. So MES brings in your contextual data, your plant data, but you may want to bring in other data sources to truly create a high fidelity digital twin. And I think that's why I keep saying, you know, digital twin is not the end all solve all. You can always use MES, leverage it as a low fidelity, a starting point, and then work on it to build your true factory digital twin. So here's a good example of HoloLens, you know, one of our customers using HoloLens with GEMES to actually use augmented reality to inspect different automotive parts. So this is Jaguar Land Rover. They're using GEMES, and they're using Microsoft HoloLens to kind of get that augmented reality view. In fact, they also use 3D components in the engine shop with digital MES providing the context and the content, populating the PLM, bringing in the 3D visualization, and then the operator is able to turn the objects around and then enter data around it, and then MES capturing the information that they're entering. There's actually a YouTube video. There's a link, and when you get the slides, you can actually go and see what this customer is doing in terms of their manufacturing with the G digital tools. In terms of analytics and what we've done with analytics, especially predictive analytics, here's a customer out of UK, a food company that used MES and our analytics package, which is C-Sense. So they combine these two to actually go and correct their quality issues. So they reduced waste. So what they do is, in this particular case, they make these flavor packets. So if you know the soup bouillons or the condensed version of your broth, the little square boxes. So they make those little square pods, and you don't want them to be overweight. You're giving away product, and you don't want them to be underweight, or it just doesn't have that much flavor. And so to make that balance of the right weight and the right flavoring, they used MES from a contextual data standpoint. And then they used C-Sense to kind of put the guardrails around how to correct the process before it goes out of control. And they managed to do that, and then again, meet the expectations in terms of the size of those pods, as well as the flavoring components, and that these are the numbers, these are real numbers that they've given us. So how do we do this from a portfolio standpoint? Again, I'm not going to go through our product line. I think you've gone through, you know our products, you know the capabilities, but really from a digital plant perspective, we see themes around the industrial worker, we see themes around continuous improvement, and to support that, we know we have to build a strong core capability framework. That includes modern architecture. So, and we'll talk a little bit about what we're doing in terms of our vision for a modern architecture, where we're going with that. System interoperability is going to be key, and you're seeing some of that happen today when it comes to rapid application development with OPSEP and so forth. We are kind of going all in where system interoperability to bring sort of that, to kind of address the first point around the modern industrial worker, that system interoperability is going to be key. If you want that persona-based application, if you want that persona-based view, your systems need to work together seamlessly. And that's what we're doing in terms of how we're bringing our systems together, which they do today, but bringing them more in a holistic world. And then all of this, keeping in mind the reality of today, that having highly secure and available systems. How do you make security paramount, make sure that these are bulletproof systems? You know, when you go through your pen test, you go through your security checklist of these systems when they're implemented, make sure that these are bulletproof. So back to the three themes. So how do we accelerate this digital transformation for you as our customer? And so the three themes that we are chasing to help you kind of with that journey is the concept of the digital worker. We want to look at, from a theme perspective, also at enterprise visibility and scalability. So this is not just about my process and my machine. It's more about how do we scale this to at the enterprise level. And then, like I said, you know, continuous improvement is going to be a key sort of paddle pod driving factor of digital transformation. And how do we support that? How do we support you through smart monitoring, through asset performance improvement? So let's sort of click into these and see from a digital plant perspective how we are planning to help you out and what's our vision for that. So first things first, I think as a Plan Apps product manager working with you, our customers, one of the key themes, one of the things that we've really heard and that we've heard about, the feedback that we've got is, hey, workers are going to be central. We have to make the operator's life simple and easy to use. We don't want to create a scenario where they're flipping through screens. You have 5 monitors that they have to go touch and feel. In fact, we don't want them to be locked down to a computer or a PC. We want our worker to be able to freely do what they do, which is produce, which is to run the machines. And so what are we doing in terms of keeping that focus? And so our answer is really, we're doing a couple of things. First off, and we'll talk about Ops Hub here in a minute, the way we are organizing our UI is around the worker, the operator. So how do I, the operator, get an environment in front of me that helps me focus on the machines, the work that I'm supposed to do, and helps me improve my performance? That's really my day, and that's where I need my help. And that's how we are focusing also from a product perspective, is to kind of help that worker out. So increase efficiency with customization. So yes, this is where customization is required, but how do I do that without effectively going and customizing my backend, where I'm changing source codes, to more customizing on the front end side? And that's where tools like Ops Hub really help. That's where tools like what we are doing with our Plan Apps components is going to help. So what we've done is, from a Plan Apps perspective, really we focused on the 2 personas. One is the supervisor and the other is the operator. So what you're seeing is, especially with 7.0 and the 8.1 release, is componentized widgets or componentized apps that we are creating that kind of cater to the supervisor persona, that cater towards operator persona, and all centered around what me as a supervisor or me as an operator want to do in terms of my equipment, my work, and my performance. So structuring my day with these apps and then making them easily accessible, and more importantly, making them mobile. So these are not, again, these are all web-based. This is no longer a tick client that needs to be installed, meaning I need to go to my computer to get things done. This is all about exposing these to mobility and letting you get to your machines and carry a tablet or a phone in some cases to get to the information and the data I need. So one of our key glues here, or the things that really bringing all of this together, which is really exciting from a GE Digital, especially from my perspective as a Plan Apps product manager, is Operations Hub and what we're doing with Operations Hub. So Operations Hub is really going to be the container for Plan Apps going forward as well. So we are creating widgets at a really fast speed, at a rapid speed, to be hosted in Plant Applications. And then what you saw from an operator, from a supervisor persona, I can now organize my work, pull in these widgets, and organize even my screens in a way that helps me do my work better. So no longer trying to limit you to, you can only do one screen at a time, or you have to flip through or tab through or open multiple screens. What you can do now is we're creating widgets, and you can bring these widgets into a multi-view Operations Hub screen, and then that can help you organize your work. So that's going to be our focus, and that certainly is a focus across our portfolio, where we bring in more and more content for our users to use from a Plan Apps perspective. But you also have the opportunity to bring in other content. Going back to my comment on persona-based views, you can bring in content from sensors directly through MQTT. You can bring in content directly from other systems, whether it's through REST services to SQL, or through other devices and through OPC UA and so forth. And then also other content from your cloud-based systems. If you have content delivery management systems in the cloud or media servers, you can connect that through REST and bring that into Ops Hub. To other third-party systems, whether it's ERP, CMMS, bring that content in here. And again, giving you to build that persona-based view to help your workers kind of get to the work that they need in one single pane of glass versus flipping through multiple systems. So here's an example of what we're doing with Plan Apps. So at the bottom, what you're seeing is what we call activities. So one of the features we released in 7.05, which we improved in 8.0, is the concept of activities, which is really your single column autolog. So we've kind of brought autolog into the paradigm of activities, and now as a user, I can have my performance information with my autolog, if you will, at the bottom. And that gives me all I need to do in terms of my work, if that's the case. And so I've got all the information I need, and now I can quickly do my work, get to my work, all of this on a tablet or an iPad or a browser. Again, the concept of rapid application development. So by going into widgets, by creating these reusable components, what we're trying to do is get you to a point where you can build these rapid applications developments yourself. So as we keep generating content, you can consume it, you can build your own applications fairly quickly with Operations Hub, integrated with Plant Apps, integrated with Historian, integrated with our HMI SCADA products, and then quickly generating your applications and deploying them faster. Remember, the key here is if you want to innovate at pressure, you want to deploy your applications at that speed and help you innovate as well. So this is the opportunity to use tools like Operations Hub to help you in that innovation journey. The other thing we're doing, again, back to that enterprise sort of theme that we're going after, is scalability. And scalability also in terms of how you leverage cloud and the capabilities that cloud brings in. So what we're doing is, and some of you probably already heard about a product called Manufacturing Data Cloud. So Data Cloud is going to be sort of our go-to from a centralized data repository standpoint. So what we're doing is, today we are bringing in Plant Apps data. Our vision is to bring in Historian data, certainly at some point, your SCADA alarms data and so forth, all in our Manufacturing Data Cloud. And that becomes a central point to generate big data analytics. If you are building in custom dashboards, you can now use this manufacturing data that you're collecting from your plant infrastructure. You can merge that with your existing data lakes or data warehouses that you've created in the cloud, whether it's ERP data, your supplier data, and now that starts bringing that entire value chain. You can build those value chain dashboards pretty easily to get a true picture of what's going across your organization. So it's no longer a plant view. You can start thinking about your organization view by moving towards a manufacturing data cloud. And certainly we are starting to build our own capabilities, our analytics capabilities, leveraging the SAVE infrastructure. So what you're going to be seeing is over the next few months, we're going to be starting to release analytics capabilities that you can leverage using this infrastructure. So I want to quickly go through some of the updates. I have some key updates I want to share. Again, we talked about digital worker visibility and so forth. A couple of bullet points I want to talk about what's coming down the road in terms of our vision and how we want to help you scale your deployments when it comes to plant applications. We're working on the concept of enterprise solution management. So this is going to be a centralized way of managing your plant applications infrastructure. That also brings in the S95, the ISA 95 equipment model. So that's going to be the overlying equipment model that you can now leverage to configure, and then we hide sort of the plumbing for you from a Plant App standpoint and get the configuration done at the back end. So enterprise solution management is planned to release in 2020. In fact, we have a version coming up in June. This is what it looks like. So you would have a web-based configuration where you would set up your plant model, you would set up your different event models, your variables, and so forth, all centralized. And then you can create templates. You can create the solution templates and deploy across multiple lines, multiple plants. So that's the first release is coming in June 2020. And let me just quickly go back here. So we are going to be doing the S95 model and then the creation and application of solution templates in our first release. And then the subsequent releases, we'll provide versioning, validation utilities. So as you connect historian tags, for example, we want to validate that those historian tags exist and have the right data. So we'll bring in validation utilities as well. It's really our first steps towards a web admin, if you will, a web managed plant applications admin. So this is sort of our first step, and you can see that's the UI we're already working on to releasing in our first release. The other big challenge that we're trying to solve is going to be around zero downtimes. This is a big challenge for any manufacturer, is taking your system down to do an upgrade. And so what we want to do is really shorten that down to near zero or zero if we can. And one of the things we are doing is we are doing a technology refresh at our end as well. Some of you may know we are going down the path of using Docker containers to host our web apps. Our goal is to move to Docker containers for everything at some point. And if it's not a Docker containers, it'll certainly be, and those not familiar with Docker, reach out to me to understand what it is. We're going to be using essentially cloud. These are all technologies that are there available today in the cloud. We're bringing those now to the edge in terms of the hybrid scenario that we talk about. And so Kubernetes to manage your Windows workload, and then Docker to essentially containerize your services. These are the two technologies we're pursuing. And this is where we see Plan Apps sort of move towards in the future. That's really our future, where we want to go, where everything's going to be in a highly available environment and highly reliant or a resilient environment with Docker and Kubernetes. We're going to be doing it in pieces. This is not a big bang. We're going to solve this next year. We're going to take, and that's why you see these flash upgrades. So the concept of flash upgrades is we are breaking down our Plan Apps core, where you have web components, you have services, and then you have your traditional database and the core that runs on it. By breaking it down, we can now provide functionality quickly, where you don't have to shut the server down, but bring in new capability quickly as we provide you service, whether it's a service or a UI component. You don't have to upgrade your core. You don't have to take your system down just to do a UI or a service upgrade. So that's where we're doing, that's where we're headed. And so that's where you're seeing these flash upgrade boxes, where we'll get to a point where everything would be pieces, and then you don't have to shut anything down. You can actually, with the latest technologies, have an older version running with the current infrastructure. You upgrade the new version, the infrastructure switches to the new version, and then the older version can be shut down. So I'm almost at the end of my presentation, so I just want to quickly run another poll here and get your feedback. So those on the call, again, just so we understand where you are today with your MES journey, with your manufacturing journey. So how many plants or how many of you have an MES system today? So the question really is, how many plants today currently have either no MES at all, have some form of built-in MES capabilities, have maybe some other off-the-shelf MES system, a third-party MES system, or a mixture. You have a mixture of, hey, I've got one portion of the plant that I have, maybe a GE or some other MES, and then some built-in applications that we did that kind of mimic an MES.
Yeah, Vikram, looks like the poll questions are coming in here, so just give it a few moments or so as we let the group answer. Looks like they're clicking away. We got about half the votes in so far. Give it a little more. I'm pretty sure that one guy that works at the water wastewater plant is going to respond with no MES at all. So he might be skewing your numbers a little bit. Yeah,
That's fine.
I'm talking about you, Adam. I see you on there.
You'd be surprised. MES can actually be used in water wastewater. It's all about context.
Yep, that is true. It looks like we've got the majority here, so I'm going to end the polling and let the results fly here. So it looks like the winner is a mixture. Is that what you would expect, Vikram?
I would. In fact, I would have thought yes. In short, yes. I mean, a lot of facilities have either existing built-in MES systems that they've had for ages, and then typically when you have new capability, new lines, or new areas of the plan, that's when they'll look for off-the-shelf systems. And so that's the typical scenario that we've seen, because there's always the risk, and they need to figure out the reward of moving to an off-the-shelf. And so that assessment takes time. And so the conversion usually happens over a period of time. And then, I expected the built-in MES capabilities to be a little higher, but I'm assuming a lot of you are already GE customers. So that's probably the reason why you have the orange, the last two bullets filled out. So no, I think this is in line. Yep. Okay.
All right, great. Yeah,
awesome.
And everyone.
Yep, and awesome. And that was actually my last slide. So thank you. Thank you for having me here. Matt, I'm not sure if, are we opening up for questions?
Yeah, let's open up for questions. Just a quick little reminder to the group. There's a few different ways to ask questions. First and foremost, you can type it in the chat in the Q&A window. We've got a couple in here that we're going to go through. If you actually want to talk verbally, the best thing to do is raise the little blue hand. The little icon shows up, and then we can temporarily open you up for a conversation, allow you to talk as an attendee. So just go through and click the buttons and type in the questions as we go here. The first one that came up is actually from Branko, and it's regarding migration over to MDC. So if you're an existing Datamart user, what's the strategy and what tools do you have to be able to move from Datamart to MDC?
So that's a good question. So it depends on what you say by Datamart data. So yes, there are ways to move your plan applications data today. You know, even if you are using, so here's what we do with MDC, right? We look at your transaction logs. We are looking at transaction logs and then using that to build the MDC database. In Datamart, what we did was we replicated the data. We replicated the data to a what I would call sort of a replication reporting database, and then from there we went on to build the denormalized schema, and then from there you go build the cube to go query and ask your questions against. So at any point, if you have your transactional data that you had from when you started with Datamart, we can quickly build that based on the transactional logs that you have. We can quickly populate MDC. We will not go and use your denormalized data, if that's the question. We can't convert your denormalized data to an MDC model. But having said that, if you're open to work with us, let's figure out a way to get your data that you have today that you may have already ported to Datamart. Let's work together to figure out how do we move this to MDC.
Yeah, Branko, hopefully that answered the question there. If you did want to talk verbally about it, just raise the hand and we can.
Oh, he knows how to reach me. I'm sure he'll reach me.
Oh yeah, you guys know each other. That's a valid point. I'm actually going to throw a question over here to Mr. Jack Nuttleman on the AutomaTech side. He actually wanted to ask something verbally to you, Vikram. So Jack, go ahead. You're on mute. Or you walked away from your computer, one of the two. Okay, maybe not. Jack, you there?
Yeah, sorry about that. Away from my computer just for a quick second. So sorry about that, guys. You got me a little off guard there.
I'm sorry, Jack. I put you on the spot there. So yeah, I just said to the group that you actually had a question you wanted to ask Vikram regarding the
Yeah, I do. So Vikram, so let's say that somebody doesn't have an MES system, or maybe they do have an MES system, but it's not fitting all their needs. What do you think are some of the ways that somebody could start using Plant Apps? As you know, Plant Apps is very scalable. You can start very small, and it can go, from very small applications and very small needs to multiple plants. So could you kind of comment on how some kind of get started on a journey?
Sure. So what I like to say is, if you're starting on a journey, think about the problem you're trying to solve, right? So start with the problem, not with, I have Plant Apps, what can I do with it? But it's more the other way around, is what's the problem I'm trying to solve? So let's say you have an MES and you're having issues around, maybe you're not just getting, let's focus on quality. Maybe you're not getting the desired results in terms of your quality. Your process is still having a lot of variability. You're not able to pinpoint issues where the process is. So definitely that's where we can help augment some of that capability in terms of using Plant Apps as quality module. We have some really good tools that can give you a different perspective of how to use your quality data, whether it's through center lining, using the concept of center lining, or creating quality alarms, or using SPC. So there's ways that you can use Plant Apps to augment your existing data and kind of get to the point where you can use a small capability in Plant Apps, but to get to helping you solve that problem. And we've seen this. A lot of people do use, because Plant Apps, by the way, can integrate with other systems, right? We can integrate with your existing laboratory management systems. We can integrate with your existing historians and so forth. So if you're already collecting data, you're already doing certain things, it's a matter of putting in that small layer to get to your problem solved. So I kind of tend to, guide people in terms of, let's figure out what the problem you're trying to solve, what are the gaps in your solution today, and how best can we address them with Plan Apps, or a combination of Plan Apps, Historian, and certainly in today's world, Ops Hub, right? Ops Hub is a great tool to kind of bring all of these things together.
Okay, great. Could you also maybe just comment, that was sort of like a segue as well, as some of the things that operations hubs is gonna kind of bring to the table. A lot of my customers say, Plan App, that it's got a great solid core backup engine. The underlying engine is really good, but the visualization, is kind of needing a little help. So an Ops Hub is kind of helping people get there. So can you just kind of comment on that a little bit?
Sure. So we're doing really two things with how Plan Applications as a product is evolving with Ops Hub, as well as what we're doing to make you build your own custom applications quickly with Plan App. So the first thing is, obviously, we are going to generate content. And by content, I mean widgets and components that you can use in Ops Hub. So we already have downtime. We already have a form of Autolog. It's not the complete Autolog, but Autolog is coming. We for 8.2, we are working on a version of Autolog that you will have in Ops Hub as well. So we'll have an Autolog component that's coming in. We're bringing in the schedule view. We are bringing in waste in 8.1. 8.1 will have waste and schedule view in there. So you'll have a starting point with waste and with schedule view as well. So we are bringing the traditional Plan Apps, what we call the thick client displays. We're converting them into more modern displays or more modern components and bringing them to Plan Apps. But the biggest thing that we're doing is the infrastructure, the plumbing that runs behind in the thick clients. We're actually exposing them as REST APIs. So those are coming in as REST APIs. And so what that'll do is, if you don't like the way our Autolog looks, if you don't like the way our downtime display looks, or you don't like the way we are showing our KPIs, you can use the API infrastructure. We call it the BFF layer, the back end for the front end. You can use that and create your own displays with the widgets that our Ops Hub uses. So I don't know if Dave Clark talked about, we're bringing in new widgets shortly here to Ops Hub. So you can utilize the Ops Hub widgets, wire them to the Plans Hub REST APIs, and now you've created your own component. You don't have to use our out-of-the-box component. But having said that, we would still encourage you to look at what we are offering out of the box before you go and build something on your own with the REST APIs. And the nice thing is underneath everything, it'll all work. You're not changing source code. All you're doing is interacting with the same messaging layer that our infrastructure, our UI infrastructure is going to be working with.
Thanks, Vikram, and thanks, Jack, for asking the questions there. Good stuff. Vikram, one question that came in is regarding digitization. So the specific example that came in through the chat was about having automation systems and having controls. Where do you start? We're hearing all these things this week about SCADA, being able to connect SCADA systems, being able to connect manufacturing execution systems. Where do you start if you don't have those layers in place?
So again, and this is opinion-based philosophy. So if I'm sure you folks have other ways of doing it. I'm kind of old school, where I start with problem. What is the problem I'm trying to solve? Okay, it's not about where can I start my digitalization journey. If you think about how we talk about digitization, digital transformation, it's about the outcome. What's the outcome that I want to get to? And then what's the path to that outcome? The path is where I start identifying what are the tools and so forth. So if my outcome, and I'll give you the same quality example, if my outcome is I really want to reduce my scrap, I have a ton of scrap that's coming out of it. Now that gives me a starting point. My journey is to reduce scrap. Where's my area? Where's my opportunity to either bring in new technologies? Maybe it requires augmented reality. It requires an IoT platform because there's a lot of sensors. It makes sense to go with an IoT platform. Like, in fact, Ops Hub, I would argue, is an IoT platform. So I would say maybe I start with IoT platform. Start with basic sensor connections. Historize that data in Historian. And now I have a starting point. I have visibility into my process that's helping me make some decisions to reduce scrap. I need to take that step further. That's where something like Plan Apps can help, where I can now put an additional layer of context and that whole capability around waste and quality management that I can truly drive towards that outcome. So again, I would say take an outcome first approach. I know you've probably heard that a lot from not only GE people, but from others as well. But I feel genuinely that's the best way to bring in new technology, is to understand the outcome and then look at what's the technology and what should be my starting point, because the outcome will drive the path forward.
Yeah, I like that answer, and I like that you're consistent with that answer when asked in two different ways. So nicely done there, Victor. Appreciate that.
Okay.
Because it is all about, defining what the problem is and tackling it the right way versus just jumping on the technology side of it. I agree there 100%. So one question I have, since it looks like our group's pretty quiet here and everybody's being bashful today in terms of asking questions, I've got one for you. So
Sure.
in this situation in the world we're living in today with COVID, have you heard any interesting stories from your customers? I know you deal with manufacturers all the time. Have you heard any interesting stories about how digitization has helped them in these times of crisis that you could share?
Yes. So in fact, we're working with one of our largest customers where, there was a lot of push early on where you had. So this is a large paper product manufacturer, right? So this was earlier there was a lot of push to have different SKUs for different types of paper. So you have different grades of paper that you use in terms of toilet paper versus paper towels versus tissues versus paper for other industries, right? Well, guess where the trend is right today? It's towards paper towels and toilet papers. So, they had a 3-month schedule locked to produce these multiple grades of paper. Now they have to go and change that because back in the day, you wanted shorter runs. You wanted shorter runs of, I want to do this grade now and this grade now and do quick changeovers. Well, now you want to do longer runs. You want to do longer runs of certain grades of paper for paper towels, for your toilet paper. And so it's actually changing. And so it's fascinating to see them use our tools, because you have this capability in Plant Apps where, yes, you can manage short runs as well as long runs. It's also something that they had to change from an ERP standpoint. You're moving from a 3-month locked schedule to now more of a schedule that has to evolve, because some days you might have a longer run of certain different grades of papers to fill for the gap that you had previously. The other challenge we're seeing is, and one thing that it's not so much a manufacturing system solve is, manufacturers, it's hard for especially paper companies to go add additional capacity. It's not, we talk about, well, paper, how hard is it to go put another line and go make more paper? Well, it's actually harder than you think. These paper machines, these cost millions of dollars. So it's hard to justify that if this COVID situation is only going to be for 4 months, it's going to be hard for them to justify putting a new machine just to satisfy this short-term peak in demand, right? So utilizing existing capacity is a challenge, right? So you're using the same machines, the same plants, but now you are refocusing on generating more, again, certain grades of paper, certain end products that you want to go after. So that's a challenge. And so utilizing, having a flexible manufacturing really helps, right? Having something like Proficy at the back end really helps. So we can easily switch. We can move from your short runs to your longer runs fairly quickly and adapt to the way you want to behave fairly quickly. So it's just fascinating. We have this dialogue continuously with our customers, and how can we help? And they say, we don't need our help. Our help is more on the demand side of things. From a manufacturing standpoint, if anything, just help us keep these systems running, because they're right now the heart and soul of our plant.
I agree. Great clarification. It's good to hear those kind of stories. It's definitely important that the manufacturers were able to shift, because I know what it was like. A month or so ago, you go in any store and the shelves are cleaned out. Now you go back, you can see those staple products like paper towels and tissues and toilet paper. So good to hear that you have a specific example of a customer that's been able to pivot and leverage digital technology to produce in this challenging time. So thanks for that. So I think we've got a question here from Mr. Hayes Pierce on the AutomaTech side. Hayes, are you ready to ask a question there?
Yeah. Hi, Vikram. Thanks again for coming in here virtually and helping us out. Quick question on time to value. Can you talk a little bit about how the time to value is reduced with the latest tools from GE? Suppose that we figured out the problem and we've gotten some infrastructure in place. How can a solution be sped to value weeks over months kind of thing?
Yeah, and that's a great question. So time to value, I kind of put it into several buckets, right? You can actually break that time to value piece into a few big highlights, right? So I think the first sort of time to value piece that we really want to solve is getting the infrastructure going. So from an infrastructure standpoint, what we're doing is we think that cloud technologies is a good place to start with. And by cloud technologies, I mean not necessarily moving plant applications to the cloud. Yes, we can do that. In fact, we're working on a hosted offering as well. So we'll talk about that in the coming months on our hosted offering and how you can leverage that. But the infrastructure piece is a big component where we talk about customers saying, hey, it takes us days to install a system. And that's one piece that we're really focusing on is how do we quickly get to installing Plant Apps quickly and seamlessly. The other piece is the amount of infrastructure required. So moving to technologies like Docker, moving to these technologies allows you to kind of move into that space where, yes, it's Windows-based technology and on the core side, but we're moving also towards Linux-based technologies where you don't have to manage the infrastructure as much as you do for Windows. So we're looking at a vision where you will still have Windows, but it's going to be that hybrid sort of scenario where you have part Windows hosted in a Linux environment and probably run through a Kubernetes cluster. So what that'll do is, yes, you have your Windows patches, but now you don't have to shut your servers down because in that cluster environment, that Kubernetes cluster environment, you can have a worker node that's running with your old version. You get the new version up with the latest patches. You just shut the other worker node down, and it all connects seamlessly. It's as if from a user perspective or from an application perspective, nothing went down. So that's one piece from time to value, and from an infrastructure, how we want to quickly get you to that portion. From a deployment standpoint, we're working very closely with our partners and with our own service delivery team as well. Is again generating content, components, reusable components, and content. So we're moving away from the traditional, here's our client, a thick client, this is what you use. And if you don't want to use that, well, go write stored procedures, right? Go write complex stored procedures. So we're trying to move away from that to, instead of writing stored procedures, why not move into the web paradigm? We've already created a library of REST services. Leverage these to connect and quickly build your applications. If you need a customized application, that is, if you need a customized application, leverage these services. Yes, there's a bit of a learning curve. I mean, there's with every technology, there's a bit of a learning curve in understanding the concept of microservices, the concept of how to use REST endpoints. But once you cross that learning curve, in this new world of web applications, building applications is really quick. I mean, we have partners that have used OpSub, used our REST endpoints, and creating applications literally within hours and had it running. So that's the real shift where we think this will bring tremendous time to value as we move towards the web paradigm, not only from a UI perspective, but also from a technology perspective that's plumbing our applications.
Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Good questions there. We're here just a little over 10 o'clock. We've got a little extra buffer time. If there's anybody on the line that wants to ask some questions, we're willing to open up the lines of chat. I see a lot of names in the list. I'm not going to say last names, but I see some Chris's and John's and Fabian's and Todd's and some other folks that may want to ask some questions verbally. So if you're interested in doing so, just raise your hand and we can open this up for some dialogue. If we don't get any takers, we're going to wrap up early and move on to the next session at 11:30. Any takers? Anyone wants to raise the hand? You guys are quiet today. What do we do to you?
Oh, I may have bored them.
Let's hope not.
I hope not.
None of those people that I mentioned by first name only want to speak up. Oh, we've got one. All right, here we go.
There we go.
All right, looks like it's Mr. Carlin. So Chris, I'm going to let you talk. You have to unmute yourself.
All right, can you hear me?
We got you.
All right. Well, I've been listening to this whole thing. So first and foremost, Vikram, great job and great job to everybody at AutomaTech. This format's been great as far as just being able to pop in and see how things are going. So thank you. I popped on specifically for Operations Hub. The whole idea that Plant Apps has a great engine, and now it's going to have a great front end and have access to the data and make it the way we want it is great. REST APIs, of course, I hear they're coming out, and I think they're still being developed, and I think the focus is currently on efficiency, and it'll move into the other components, especially quality and the like. And I wonder if you can just speak to what the progress is for the REST APIs, and maybe a little bit of what do you need to know as a technology in order to start participating in that? How do we ramp up our team to be able to deliver on creating those developed screens?
Sure. So with 8.1, you would essentially have all the REST services you need to build a complete OEE solution. So 8.1 plugs in the gap that we had around waste. So your REST API service for waste would be available with 8.1. We're also bringing in schedule view. So you'll have the initial plumbing for your schedules, your process orders. So you can manage your process orders using those REST APIs as well. The other thing, so just to give you a clear, idea on the roadmap, Autolog, you can today use the activities REST APIs. So if you're trying to build Autologs, you can do that with the activities REST APIs. Those are already bringing in all your variable data. The one big thing I would say we're doing with 8.2 is going to be e-signatures. I think that'll be a big win when it comes to food manufacturers, certainly pharma companies, if you're the applications you're targeting, where we would have not only our app supporting, so in this case, quality variables supporting REST signatures, but then you'll have the underlying REST services to kind of go build your own applications as well. So that's sort of what we're doing. So 8.1 we'll have efficiency, 8.2 we'll have more into quality, and then in subsequent releases we'll continue to release more REST services around SPC, quality, and so forth. So alarms already exist today, so alarms are already there, but we'll continuously add more. Having said that, we also releasing a SQL connector. So you have the opportunity to use it in case you already have some plumbing done on the stored procedure side or on the SQL side. You can leverage that, and then once we have the gap fillers covered by REST services, you can always switch. Because again, from a UI perspective, your UI will be the same. Then all you're doing is your wiring changes from stored procedures to a SQL connector to REST services.
Thank you very much for that. It's great to know that the stored procedures will be available. Of course, things like SQL reporting has been used in the past, but to be able to make that switch over to Operations Hub is exciting.
Thanks, Chris, for asking the question. That's a good one there. Vikram, a little bit related to some of this, but also looking at the list of participants that are on the line. What's the plan or strategy with getting additional training for our implementation partners? I know you guys had the training back in March, the in-person one that was fairly well received. What all is GE doing to help our implementation partners get further up to speed in all these new technologies? You guys are making a great investment, so how do we enable them sooner and faster?
Sure. So, first off, like the sessions we had in Chicago. So those who attended that session, thank you for attending and thank you for your feedback. So those sessions have been were recorded and have been released, and they're available on Edge. I believe they were made available a couple of weeks ago. If not, I can follow up. But those sessions that we recorded are available on the Edge. The training team is putting together formal training also specifically around application development with Plant Apps and and building microservices. So we're working with the training department as well to bring in more formal training, and in today's scenario, we want to deliver that content online. So all of that would be delivered online through self-learning training. So that's coming. And like I said, if you want to start today, I think the best place to start would be the training, the recordings that we did from our Chicago sessions, and then for more formal, stay tuned. We will be talking about our training release there pretty quickly.
Great, thanks for clarifying that. Looks like Mr. Todd Ebert would like to ask you a question, so go for it, Todd. Just unmute yourself.
Thanks, Matt. Can you guys hear me okay?
Loud and clear. How's it going?
Great. Thank you, Vikram, for the presentation. That was great. I do have one question. So with Plant Apps being more of a multimodal solution now, can you describe some ways how multimodal plants could use the platform to tie the process and discrete ends together more effectively?
Sure. So those not familiar with what we've done with 8.0 and 8.1 and what multimodal really means, what we've done is we've looked at our traditional Plant Apps core customers, which are more process CPG centric. And then we also have businesses that run discrete operations. So you think about assembly shop, machining shops that are more discrete operations. And what we've done is we brought that capability. We've got Plant Apps. In fact, we've enhanced Plant Apps capabilities to address those discrete operations as well. So this gives a, from a manufacturing standpoint, it's a great opportunity to tie these two pieces together. So I'll give you an example of a customer that we are actually leveraging this today. If you think about and this is a customer that does cosmetics. So if you think about cosmetics, you have a processed traditional batch. At the end of it, they make these care packages, which is, think of care packages like the gift packages that you see in the big stores, right? You have a perfume, you have a soap, you have all these different combinations that becomes a gift in what they call care packages. The way they do that is it's actually an assembly. It's an assembly process where an operator picks a perfume, or picks a soap, or picks a deodorant, or whatever that care package requirement is, and it becomes like a discrete operation, and then they assemble that. So we are actually deploying Plant Apps to cover all of these areas, and they are using the discrete capabilities. In this case, what they're doing is they're configuring a route. So for their product, if it's a care package that constitutes 4 different types of perfumes and 3 different types of soaps and bath salts, or whatever the case may be, or shower gels, that essentially is a product packaging that gets configured in a route. And then so they use the discrete route capabilities in Plant Apps to help the operator pick the right ingredient or to pick the right the product to create the care package. The other area where they're using discrete is the route management capability to run an operation in the form of recipes. So route management, they're actually mimicking as a way to actually execute recipes. So that's why we're seeing a lot of demand for this multimodal model of Plant Apps, where they can leverage route management, non-conformant, traditional discrete capabilities to run areas of the plant. And certainly on the flip side, discrete operations can leverage our traditional OEE, the way we do quality, the way we do genealogy and traceability to help enhance their operations. Because even in discrete, you have certain processes. So 3D printing, even though it's discrete, if you think about a 3D printer, it's actually a process. It has different steps and phases that it goes through, right? So again, they're leveraging Plant Apps again here to kind of bring out and plug in those additional gaps. So again, great opportunity for multimodal manufacturers to look at Plant Apps and ways to leverage these discrete capabilities that we're bringing into the product.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks, good questions there. So I don't see any other questions in the window, or wait, okay, I eat my words. I just saw Dominic raised his hand, so I'm gonna let you talk, Dominic. There we go. Just unmute yourself and you should be good to go.
Thanks. Hey, Vikram.
Hey, Dominic.
Thanks for the presentation today. Very helpful. I have a quick question about the customer you were just talking about.
Sure.
So how long did it take you to implement these new technologies for them and these new strategies? And how long was the time to value for them? Are they currently using this?
So just to be clear, 8.0 with discrete capabilities released last December. So we are actually in implementation mode. So they are turning on their first line in, I believe, in the next 4 to 6 weeks.
Okay, great.
So it's an implementation. So if the question is this a released product? Yes, they're using released capabilities, and we are continuing to work with them to add more.
Awesome. Thank you.